the fallout with Kanye West, right?
Hmm.
Something interesting that I found about the fallout with Kanye West is how the Daily Wire, which you would think they're aligned with Kanye West, they're trying to support him, but no, when he said a bunch of anti-Semitic things, which I know maybe you don't agree that they're anti, for the sake of argument, let's just say they are. They dissociated themselves from him. Perhaps because a lot of the people in charge of that company are Jewish. I don't know. I'm not trying to put that out there necessarily, but it's true. Both Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring are Jewish, but they revealed, Jeremy Boring at least, during an interview with Megyn Kelly, that if he knew the depth and the extent of how anti-Semitic Kanye West's comments were, he would not have invited him to the Owens had a premiere of her George Floyd event, and he said, "Don't." He would have said, don't invite Kanye to it," even though Candace is close friends with Kanye, and he's clearly a big part of it. He's clearly a big part of Candace's attempt to show Black America that, hey, look, there's a lot of Black Americans who question the narrative, who question this whole idea that George Floyd is a hero, that BLM is a good thing. Here's our assault on that idea, on that narrative. Kanye West is clearly a part of that effort, and yet Jeremy Boring said he would not have invited Kanye to that. It just feels like they are backtracking, they are betraying their commitment to being pro free speech.
How much does it matter, whether what Kanye said is really anti-Semitic and or, if Kanye himself is
For me,
anti-Semitic?
it matters
Yeah.
zero. For me, hate speech is free speech. The right often when they encounter this, people on the right will very very often say hate speech. Number one, hate speech is free speech. Number two, the only speech that needs protecting is speech that you find abhorrent. You don't need to protect speech that people are on board with. Certainly, right? That needs no
Hmm.
protection. And you don't need to protect speech that people are pretty okay with, because they're okay with it. You only need to protect speech that people hate or people find abhorrent.
Hmm.
That's hate speech, guys. That's hate speech, and that's what people like Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring would have argued against the left whenever the left tries to censor people on the right. But when it comes time to Kanye West and anti-Semitism, they kind of change their tunes. Which I just want to remind people. I mean, I consider myself a conservative, but I'm not blind. Being willing to censor people and being willing to betray your principles, like principles of free speech, it's not just something that leftists do, okay? It's something that leftists do now because they control so many areas of power in the culture and in government. And power corrupts people and they abuse it. And that's why we tend to talk about leftists abusing their power, abusing their position, trying to clamp down on speech because they do it more often. But they only do it more often because they're in power. But this is a gentle reminder that the right is fully capable of doing the same thing. If the right was fully in power, think maybe like McCarthy era, right? They're fully capable of censoring people, of letting power corrupt them, of abusing their power to censor. They're fully capable of it. And when they have a little bit of it, they can do it. They can do it. The Daily Wire just did a little bit of it. Not a lot, but a little bit of it.
Is there anything more at stake than just Kanye attending the premiere with Candace Owens?
Yes, of course, there's a lot at stake. They have their advertisers to worry about, they
No,
have
no, no,
their
no, no.
investors to
What?
worry about.
Well, what else was Daily Wire saying they would have done
That's all they were
to Kanye?
saying. That's all they were saying. They weren't saying that they would, I don't know, cancel him as in, well, I mean, they were they were saying that they were willing to cancel him as far as they can, right? The only thing they could do is to not allow him to attend this thing, correct?
Hmm.
Not allow him to appear on Candace Owens' show. Those are the things within the Daily Wire's control, and they openly admitted that they were willing to do those things because he said something abhorrent in their view.
Hmm.
That's a subjective viewpoint, and they were willing to censor him And they can say, well, we're a, we're a private company, blah blah blah. It's like, but that's what that's what Google says. Ben Shapiro
But
doesn't accept that argument when Google says that, when Twitter says that. He says that there's a moral good to free speech. There's a moral good to this principle of free speech and acceptance of speech. But when it comes time to accept Kanye's abhorrent speech, suddenly the Daily Wire changes their tune. And it's a good reminder that this is not about the left. It's about the left right now, but it's not about the left in general. In general, it's about the human tendency to abuse power. When the left is in power, they will abuse it. They will control speech. They will censor people. And when the right is in power, they will do the same thing.
so
That's
what
why
do
we
you
need
think?
checks and balances.
So what do you think they should have done? Well, so assuming that they
They should
believe
have let
that,
him go to the premiere and do whatever he and talk to and be on Candace's show and say whatever he wants to say. That's what they
okay,
should have done if they wanted
so
to
you don't,
adhere to the principle of free speech.
okay,
And then
so
they
you
can
don't
go
think,
ahead and they can have Ben Shapiro do a 10-minute segment right after about how he totally disagrees with Kanye. That's fine. You can say how you think he's a dumb fuck and how everything he says is wrong. That's
Mhm,
great. Go ahead and do that. But let his opinions be put on your platform. Let his opinions be put on Candace's platform. And then you can rebut it. And then you can let the viewer decide.
mhm.
That is adherence to the principle of free speech. But that's not what Jeremy Boring said. He said he wouldn't even allow Kanye at the event. He wouldn't allow him on the platform. And I was super disappointed because these are the same people on the right who've been arguing for free speech. But you can see how easily it flips when it's a
Mhm.
little too close to home, right? There's a it's a little too anti-Semitism is a little too close to home to let's just put it this way, to all the people who pay the bills at the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
They pay the bills. End of story. So that's a gut check. That's a reality check for anybody who thinks that, oh my God, we have so much evidence of people on the left being anti-free speech, censoring people, being undemocratic. So therefore, leftists are all the bad people. No, I would say people who get power are the bad people. Because just like the old saying goes, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So when you have the ability to censor, when you're in control, it's just too tempting to wield that in a way that is self-serving. That's not a right or left thing. I think history shows that very, very clearly. It's it's a left thing at the moment, but
Mhm.
it's not inherently a right or left thing. It's just a human thing. And they give you a little peek of that. So as much as I support the Daily Wire, I've been watching their shitty movies. Well, they're not all shitty, but they're kind of mid. They're very mid, but I watch them. I try to support them. I think Ben Shapiro is a smart guy, and I watch his stuff and I support him. But are they ideologically consistent on this topic? Clearly not.
Have other people been calling them out on this, and like, what's their response been? Have you seen any of that?
Well, I mean, when I saw it on Twitter, I saw some leftist Twitters people call them out on the hypocrisy, which unfortunately I have to agree with. Like, I thought you guys were the free speech platform. What's going on now? You know,
Hmm.
free speech, except when I really, really disagree with you.
I mean,
Oh,
did they
okay.
have any response to that though?
I didn't see any good response. You know why? Because I don't think there's a good response. I don't think there is a good response. And now, in
Uh,
fairness to the Daily Wire, their power over Kanye is minimal, but at the same time, and they are a private company, as everybody likes to say, so they do technically have the right to associate with who they want to associate with. But you would think if you were a free speech platform, even if I were a private company, I would make every attempt to platform voices that I find terrible
mhm.
just to prove that I'm for free speech.
Yeah, I wonder if they polled their users how
I
what
don't think
that
they
would look
poll their
like.
users. I don't know. I just don't know. I think if they poll their users, they find that their users would be 100%, not 100%, maybe 80% in favor of Kanye.
Hmm.
But the users are not as important as the people who pay the bills.
But aren't the users the ones paying the bills? Because they're the ones subscribing to Daily Wire, right?
I guess you could view it that way. Yeah. But investors are more proximal as far as the guys paying the bills, right?
Hmm.
There's the rich guy you have to talk to every month, correct?
Yeah, I don't
You
know what their, yeah, I have no idea about their corporate structure and their income streams and
you're the rich investor that you have to answer to every month or so probably feels more like your boss than the users. That's all I
Mhm.
have to say to that. And if they're not happy, then that moves you. It's unfortunate, but I just have to. We want to be fair on this platform, so we have to call out the right when it's like
I mean,
this.
how much of Daily Wire is owned by, Shapiro and
He said he's not
Jeremy
the owner.
Boring?
He said that he's a founder, but he does not own it. He owns a
Hmm.
small percentage of it, which makes sense. This
Hmm.
clearly it was an operation that took a lot of capital, right, to start. That capital didn't come from Ben Shapiro. This capital came from someone else, and I would guess that that's someone else super offended by comments that Kanye has made recently.
Hmm.
And money talks. I'm not trying to put out a conspiracy theory. I'm just saying when they're tested by the financial reality of a situation, that's when your principles are really tested. And I have to say that the Daily Wire was tested in this instance, and they came up short.
I don't even see necessarily this being about money, right?
I think it's
They're they're
definitely about money. I think it's
they're just
no, I
being
think it's rich
inconsistent,
people. Well, why are they being inconsistent?
right? Because I mean, they don't like what Kanye is saying, basically.
I think it's deeper than that. I think the people who are paying the bills don't like it. I think that's more accurate.
Hmm.
If I ran it, I would have platformed Kanye West. I let him say whatever he wants on Candace's show. But you know what? I don't run a multi-million-dollar business, and with my philosophy, I probably would have run it into the ground.
Yeah, I think the distinction I was trying to make with it being financial versus not is, you know, were they concerned that they were going to lose money
That's
over
my
this?
belief. Yes, when you have rich investors who tell you something and have a strong opinion about something, I think
But
that
that
moves
doesn't make
you.
wait. That doesn't make sense though, because their revenue is coming from whatever subscriptions and stuff, not investors, right? Investors just want to make money, but that's not where they're making their money from.
Uh,
It would be advertisers and users basically.
but who owns the company? It's not Ben Shapiro, and it's not even Jeremy Boring. I don't think. Who owns the company?
I don't know. I'm not. I guess I'm saying that doesn't even matter, right? It's like yeah.
Oh, it
It
definitely matters. If somebody owns the
was this.
company and they tell you what they want, it matters. They own it.
Yeah, sure, sure. But I'm saying, was this a financially motivated decision?
Oh, as far as whether or not they would lose subscribers or not, no, I don't think so.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's how a lot of cancellation might happen, right? Because they're concerned, oh, well, like why did Adidas drop Kanye, right? It's like, well, okay, it's more complicated, but I think one of the fears might be, and I'm not saying that's the case in this, one of the fears might be that we're going to lose subscribers because we have a lot of Jewish subscribers and they don't
No,
want
that's
it.
not
Right,
why. No, I don't agree with that. No, that's not
right,
why.
right. I'm not, that's exactly, yeah,
It's not about Jewish subscribers. It's about Jewish owners. Let's just say the quiet part out loud. A lot of the
yeah,
people who own the Daily Wire are Jewish.
yeah. So in my opinion, it's not a financial decision.
No, it's
It's
about
just
who
basically,
owns. It's about who owns the game.
yeah. Well, it's about who
Yeah,
owns it and them getting offended, basically.
correct.
Yeah.
But then that really tests that really tests your commitment to being a free speech platform, correct? These are your
Yeah.
principles. You stated that these are your principles. If a person really wanted to adhere to their principles, here's what they would do. They would say, "This is what my bosses want me to do, and here's what I want to do to adhere to free speech. And since they're incompatible, I quit." That's what that's what you would do if you're principled, right? And I'm not even saying, "Oh, you're a shill, Ben Shapiro, because you didn't quit. You should have quit immediately." No, I mean, obviously life is more complicated than that. You have to sort of pick your battles. And maybe this is not the battle they want to pick, but it's a compromise that they made. It's a compromise that they made. And never forget that these compromises need to be made. And a lot of them are necessitated by forces on the quote unquote right. The right is not your free speech champion. It's just what I'm trying to tell you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think it is important to call
Yeah,
these guys out. Yeah,
yeah. You just have to call them. If you don't have to be, you don't have to have a long memory and be a very apt student of history to go back to when the right was responsible for the vast majority of censorship and illiberal practices. Of course, you can find it in this country, in other countries. Sure, of course.
yeah,
It's a good reminder, though, that this is a human problem. It's not a leftist problem. It only looks like a leftist problem right now because they're the ones that control so many of these levers of power. It's not
yeah.
about, it's not, yeah, it's not about, oh, leftist ideology makes you power hungry and censor happy. No, it's power that corrupts people and abuse of power that tempts people. And whenever you have power, you'll be tempted to abuse it.
It's interesting. Doesn't that make Elon even more unique?
Yeah, because he's not a right, he's not conservative or anything. He wants to preserve free speech
No. What I
for
mean is that he's got a lot of power, obviously, right? And yet he's
oh, and
sort
he
of
doesn't
said,
want to abuse it. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
he's
we'll
basically
see.
said,
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
yeah,
We'll see. The
yeah.
first time like some how do you say inconvenient story about Tesla or something comes up, we'll see how he handles it. Right? Will he
And
be tempted to squash it?
there's gonna be a lot of them too.
Right. So we'll see how he handles that sort of stuff. Because right now, nothing like he can be for free speech, but none of it personally hurts him. So the first story that personally hurts him, that will be a good test to see how he handles that. Will you handle it the way the Democrats handled the Hunter Biden laptop?
I think people, who don't like Elon or, and/or people in the left have already pointed out sort of some seemingly hypocritical actions that he's done, right? Like I think there was this thing with involving some law firm that he didn't like, do you remember?
Yeah, yeah, and the pedo guy too.
I don't see the law firm thing as being totally analogous because it's like,
Let's be real though, the pedo guy is a pedo. Come on, dude. Old white guy in Thailand. Come on. What are you doing there?
I really can't comment. I was
Exploring caves, whatever. Whatever. We know why like old white guys go to Thailand, okay? Let's just be fucking real about it. Here's the thing that he shouldn't have said. He called him the pedo guy. There's no evidence that he's a pedo. He should have just said you're there for sex tourism, which there's ample evidence because you're a white guy in Thailand. What else are you there for? But he could easily have been there for sex tourism, but with adults, correct? Which I think most people would find much more that would be okay. They don't think that that's immoral or anything. But he was definitely there for some kind of sex tourism. All right? Come on. Let's just use common sense, just like the Paul Pelosi situation. I have an IQ that's in the triple digits. I can fucking use common sense. But yeah, Elon, of course Elon has been a hypocrite sometimes. And here's the thing that I didn't always believe, but I'm starting to warm up to and I've come to accept more and more. There's always we all have situations where we've been hypocrites. And even though it's an easy attack, like I love to for instance, I love to say LeBron James is a hypocrite, right? Because he talks about social justice, but he's just quiet on China. And he tells people to shut up when it comes to China. Clear hypocrisy, of course. But we've all been hypocrites on one thing or another. That's true. I mean, we're human. I don't think that just being a hypocrite here and there invalidates everything you've done, even though I have sort of implied that that LeBron being a hypocrite has invalidated everything he said. It's not true. It doesn't. We've all been a hypocrite somewhere. If you are on record saying stuff, you're gonna have hypocrisies, right? I think for those of us who are sniping, who are observing people in the public eye, it's so easy for us to criticize them because they say a lot of things on the public record.
Yeah,
So it's
that's a
very
good
easy
point.
to just go back and say, well, this is hypocritical when in context with this. Like, okay, true. But
Yeah, like what's gonna happen to us if we
oh yeah,
continue
yeah,
this
exactly. We get famous, then it will happen to us. Like you said
few years?
this in 2018. And that totally contradicts something you said in 2025. Like, oh, I guess it does. But I didn't even think about it that way, or it's going to happen, right? Because we're human.
Right. I wasn't necessarily saying that we're going to get famous. I was just saying, we are going to be an example of
Yeah, yeah. Even if
having
you're not
having stuff in the
famous.
public record. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's on record, then you will have contradictions. That's just because you're human. You're not like some sort of advanced computer program that's going to be consistent always. So it's just going to happen. And so over time, I become more forgiving of that. Yeah, it's still not good. Let's not get it mistaken. Okay, if I catch you being hypocritical, I'm still going to call it out. So I'm not going to say, "Oh yeah, that's totally okay." So what? You know? Oh, and I really hate when people say, "Oh, that's whataboutism." It's like you just say that's whataboutism. That's like a blanket way to excuse hypocrisy. That's dumb. You just can't just say, "Oh, well, it's whataboutism." It's like, well, what if there was like a Christian pastor and he decried gay people nonstop, and then we caught him having gay sex, and then we said, "Hey, you're a hypocrite, man," and he just said, "Hey, man, that's whataboutism." Like, no, that's you're a hypocrite. Don't like try to deflect it by just saying that's whataboutism. That's clear hypocrisy, and that's worth being pointed out. So, no, I don't think that that excuses hypocrisy, but at the same time, I'm more tolerant of it, and I think that yeah, everybody's a hypocrite here and there, sure. So it's worth pointing out, but at the same time, it can't be the only thing. It can't be, oh, well, you're a hypocrite, so therefore you're totally wrong about this. No, you can point out that they're a hypocrite, but also you need to point out, like, on other points, why their new position is illogical or unfounded. You need more than just, oh, they were a hypocrite, because we're all hypocrites at some point.
I mean, I think Elon's going to be in some really tough situations going forward, just because
He is.
of his business interest in China.
Oh yeah,
This is
absolutely. He's
that's
still
that's
trying to make
not
a ton of money in China.
yeah, that's not exactly
So
aligned
what's the
with
difference? Yeah, that's a great
free
example because
speech.
I always rail on LeBron for doing business in China, right? It's like
Yeah.
you want to talk about social justice, but yet you do business in China. You're a fucking hypocrite. I dismiss everything you say. And yet Elon Musk, whom we both like and
Our
favor,
Lord and Savior.
right, our Lord and Savior Musk, he talks about free speech all day and how important, the public square is. And he put his neck out there. He paid $44 billion to he put his money where his mouth is. And yet, at the same time, he's in bed with China, which is definitely not a free speech platform. We can agree. It's the antithesis of free speech. But we don't call him out on that. We don't say, well, you can't possibly really be for free speech because you still do business with China. So yeah, we're not being consistent there, and it pains me to admit it, but we got to be fair and say, well, why do we not admit that about Elon Musk? Because we love him, we favor him, but there's that inconsistency, right? And we hope that he can maybe reconcile it and do some good and maybe affect some change in China based on his influence or whatever. But you know what? Probably he can't. Why would we think that he can affect any change in China? It's just going to continue as is. So it's an inconsistent position. We cut him a lot of slack that I personally don't cut LeBron James. That's an inconsistency, and at least I admit it though. If I were an MSNBC, I would just like until I'm blue in the face, just deny. Just deny that I'm wrong, that I have any inconsistency whatsoever. I just deny it. And then I would tell you that Paul Pelosi's attacker was like some super MAGA. I just expect you to believe it. Don't look here, look over there.